Hello everybody! Today I want to show you guys the 10 new cards that will be coming to Chroma Bloom and Blight very soon. These 10 cards were created in collaboration with our biggest Kickstarter supporters, so big thanks to them, and let's just get to it. Now these cards are all unified by one theme. They're all related to a hero in some way. We're going to go into a match for each of these cards, and then I'll show them off there. The first card to talk about is Upon Thy Soul. This is a spell that costs 2 Valor and 1 Insight to play. It says, mark target allied page with abilities of permanence in this page cost 1 neutral less. And its opposing page with abilities of permanence in this page costs 1 neutral more. This spell allows you to mark 2 pages. However, one on your side and one on the opponent's side. The one on your side is a buffing mark. The one on your opponent's side is a debuffing one. This effect is quite useful because you can just place it like so, and not only can you then utilize it with stuff like mana drones to be able to use this ability for free, but also, of course, as the envoy, you're able to use this to cheapen the costs of your spells. So to give an example of this here, now that we have marked this page, we can use our primary to get a spell in play as a companion. And then we can use this ability for less mana than it would otherwise cost. Usually this spell, of course, would cost 1 neutral and 1 insight. But by being on this mark, we are now able to use it for only 1 insight, which is quite useful. It allows you as envoy to ramp out some abilities a little bit faster. Of course, this is also just useful with general ability-based companions. So you can see here, I can use this mana drone ability for free now. On top of that, of course, this is also a good way of removing your opponent's marks, because it is both a buff and a debuff on both sides of the board. You can kind of play around with it. You can get rid of negative marks on your side of the board or positive marks on their side of the board without ever having to worry about how that might negatively affect you. The next card is Unhallowed Ground. I am showing Unhallowed Ground from the opponent's perspective because it's a bit easier to get a proper feeling for how the card works that way. Unhallowed Ground is an enchantment with a mana cost of 1 Ambition and 2 Devotion and a span of 3. It reads, after your opponent plays a card, deal 1 damage to them for every card that entered the ashes this turn. So, to give an example, let's play this Benefactor. Nothing happens. There's no card in our ashes yet, so the Benefactor has very little impact. If I am to play a Bag of Crowns, you can see now I take some damage. If I now play for Hire for Sale, again, I will be taking damage, this time quite a bit more. Every time I add another card to this list, I end up taking more and more damage. This is an effect that is very powerful at shutting down certain styles of decks while allowing you to maintain some aggression. The next card we're looking at is Cinder Eddy. Cinder Eddy is a spell that costs 2 Valor and 1 Devotion. It says deal 1 damage to all permanents. If any were destroyed this way, an XX Icke enters the story, where X is equal to the amount of damage dealt by Cinder Eddy. So you can see currently in the story, there is a 1 health Son of Driven and a 3 health Skull-of-Oz Hatchling. If I now play Cinder Eddy, it will deal 1 damage to all of them and allow me to summon a 2/2 Icke. This effect is very powerful since it allows you to both fight back as well as build a board at the same time. The next card is the Charred. The Charred is a 2 Ambition, 1 Insight companion with 4 attack and 3 health. They have 1 ability that costs no mana and has a cooldown of 1. Play a spell from your ashes with a mana cost equal to or less than my health for free. Void me. This is why I am showing this card already, because I want to be able to show off this ability. So we have now played good old Knife Made Wise, which is in the ashes. We're going to wait until it is our turn again. And now we can play the Charred and use their ability to replay this Knife Made Wise. Of course, this is not necessarily the most useful, but you know. This effect does work with higher cost spells if you increase the health of the Charred. The next card is Witch Dance. Witch Dance is a 1 Valor and 2 Ambition enchantment with a span of 3. It reads, after an allied companion enters the story, give them and their allied adjacent companions +1 health. Then it has an ability with a mana cost of 2 neutral and a cooldown of 1. It says, return another target allied permanent to your hand to play it again for free. If we want to play this card as VS Mini Mines, we of course need to be a little bit clever about our mana, but that's not a problem. Now we have Witch Dance in play. Let's use this ability with Inexoron. I play Inexoron, which now has its health increased immediately. Then I can use this ability. Well, actually, let me start by attacking first. Then I can use this ability to return the Inexoron to my hand and play it again immediately. Which, as you might imagine, also lets me attack again immediately. I'm going to use our debugger right now to give myself some mana and refresh the cooldowns. I'm now going to play the Frontline Overseer. This card, as you might be aware, has a powerful rally effect and a powerful Dawn. We use the Dawn by playing this Frontline Overseer. And if we now activate Witch Dance to play the Frontline Overseer again, we also get the Dawn again. You can see there's some nice synergies that can be found with Witch Dance. Our next card is Reminiscence. Reminiscence is a 2 devotion, 1 insight enchantment with a span of 3. It says at the end of your turn, if none of your companions attack this turn, give all companions in your deck +1 health for the rest of the game. As you might know, if a card says a buff applies for the rest of the game, it means it effectively has changed the card for the rest of this match. A buff that sticks even when the card is placed in the ashes or returned to your hand or returned to your deck. Let's play a Bag of Crowns and then play this fun little enchantment. It won't do anything immediately. It is definitely a bit of a slower effect. We didn't attack. So you can see we have now drawn the Scholar's Attendant, who usually has 4 attack and 5 health, but our Scholar's Attendant has 4 attack and 6 health. We can still play companions, just as you would normally be able to play them. Oh, I guess I don't have the right mana for that. But we can still play them normally. The only important thing is that we don't attack. If we ever attack, then we don't get this buff. So you can see we just drew a Lagomelia Matriarch, who is a 4 attack and 8 health companion now. So if I play this, you can see it's quite powerful. Next on the list is Lukak, the Tetragraph. Lukak is a legendary companion. He costs 4 neutral and 2 valor and has 6 attack and 7 health. He has 1 ability, although It may as well be 4-ish abilities, depending on how you look at it. This ability costs no mana and has a cooldown of 1. It reads, if I am in the combat stance, until end of turn, I may attack twice or I gain Overwhelm and +3 attack. If I am in the guarded stance, I gain Warded until the start of your next turn and Bolt, or I gain +2/+2 and 1 plating. The way this works is that depending on which stance Lukak is in, he can give himself a different buff. So currently I'm in the combat stance. Let me toggle into the guarded stance. If I now activate this ability, I can choose between gaining Warded until the start of my next turn and Bolt, or +2/+2 and 1 plating. Let me choose Warded and Bolt. You can see Lukak is now warded. I'm going to end my turn. Hope that we don't take too much damage. Very good. So, it is now my turn again. I can toggle Lukak into the combat stance, and because he has Bolt, he's able to attack immediately. I can now say, okay, let me activate this, and I can choose between until end of turn I may attack twice, or I gain Overwhelm and +3 attack. If I select this, Lukak now has Overwhelm and 3 additional attack, which is quite nice. Let me go ahead and get rid of that, as best as we can, of course. This board is looking a little bit scary, I have to admit. So we can go in and attack with Lukak, who is quite powerful. It is important to keep in mind here that some of these buffs are permanent. So, for example, Lukak now has Bolt or Overwhelm and +3 attack. Well, actually, and. He has Bolt and Overwhelm and +3 attack. Sorry, I'm trying to be so formal about all of this, but yeah. Anyway. If I want to, I can toggle him into the guarded stance again. And gain +2/+2 and 1 plating. Which again, is actually just a buff he now has. We end our turn here. Going into the next turn, we can again continue to apply buffs with Lukak. So, for example, we can toggle him into the combat stance and then gain the ability to attack twice. Which is pretty good, because we are already quite powerful with some plating, 11 attack, 9 health. Lukak is a master of combat, and it shows. Our next card is The House Always Wins, a spell that costs 2 inside mana. Guess if the next card your opponent plays is going to cost at least 5 mana or less than 5. If you guess correctly, mark 3 random allied pages with add a bag of crowns to your hand after a permanent enters this page if its mana cost is 5 or higher. If you're wrong, mark 3 random pages instead. When you play The House Always Wins, you have to take a bit of a gamble. Is the next card your opponent going to play going to cost at least 5 mana or less than that? I'm going to say it's going to cost less than that. Now we wait. Our opponent plays a 3 mana companion, and as you can see, now we have 3 marks down. Each of these says, add a bag of crowns to your hand after a permanent enters this page if its mana cost is 5 or higher. As we all know, bags of crowns are quite valuable. So what I can now do, so I can for example play this Red Sky Bracketeer here, and I get a bag of crowns. Isn't that wonderful? Now, to show this off a little bit, I do also want to guess wrongly. I'm going to say the next card our opponent plays is going to cost at least 5 mana. This is an Astromagus Rally deck, so it's kind of unlikely it's going to cost 5 or more. Right? It's probably more likely to be less than 5. So we end our turn again. So opponent's turn, and they play a 2 mana companion. So you can see, this time around we were wrong. And one of the marks was played on our opponent's side of the board. One of them was placed over here. And I think the final one actually hit one of the pages we already had marked. So you can still get some value even if you guess wrong. But ideally, you want to guess right. For this next card, I'm going to be using the debugging tool again to give myself a little bit of extra mana and probably some extra cards. Our next card is Winging It. For this next card, I have given myself some extra mana again, and we might also be giving us. For this next card, I will be using the debugger tool again to give myself a bit of extra mana and probably some extra cards, just so you're aware of it. Our next card is Winging It, a 3 neutral and 2 devotion spell. It reads, return a random allied permanent to your hand to have a random permanent enter the story from your hand. Your opponent returns a random opposing permanent to their hand, then a random permanent enters the story from their hand. So to show this off, if I want to play this Ghost of Goodwill, I can then play Winging It and bounce back my Ghost of Goodwill, and hey, I have Carrion Sprites instead. And I bounce back my opponent's Eager Apothecary and replace it with a Living Rampart. Of course, as this says, you don't actually need to bounce something your opponent has. So you need to have something yourself to be able to get something into play. But even if your opponent's board is empty, this will still play something for them. So be careful with it. Yes, this card can allow for some fun shenanigans, but at the same time, it is also a bit risky to use because you might be giving your opponent something really scary. The final card that we're going to add with this patch is Lying in Wait, a 2 ambition spell that says secretly choose an allied page. After your opponent plays a companion and the chosen page is occupied by an allied companion, your companion attacks them. Your companion deals their damage first. Secretly targeting a page is something that you are probably already familiar with. You know which page has been targeted, your opponent doesn't. We're going to wait until our opponent plays something. Kind of taking their time a little bit here. Yeah, this particular bot is very happy to just click the primary button a lot. So you can see our opponent played this Wilhund, which our Skullifos Hatchling attacked. But because our Skullifos Hatchling deals their damage first, the Wilhund is destroyed before it can deal damage to the Skullifos Hatchling, and as such the Skullifos Hatchling survives. If the Skullifos Hatchling wouldn't be able to destroy the opposing companion, if it had 4 health, for example, then the Skullifos Hatchling would also have taken damage. That's it for the new cards. I hope you're really excited for them. I know I am. But I also want to briefly show some of the important balance changes coming with this patch. First of all, Bebo Boomer's secondary now says, at the start of your turn, add your unspent mana from last turn to your mana pool until end of turn as neutral mana. So she can no longer carry over colored mana, but she can also carry over however much mana she wants again. Siege Baron's primary now says, discard a card to draw a card, which means that if there are no cards in Siege Baron's hand, he will not be able to use this to draw cards. And very similarly, Tani Goyoans. Secondary now says, shuffle a random card from your hand into your deck to draw a card. Your opponent does the same. So if you have no cards in hand, you're not able to use this to draw a card. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you guys around. This patch will be arriving very soon. We're hoping within the next 2 or 3 days.